Hello, I'm Karen Stathopoulos, and I'm going to be reading a story and some letters today and celebrating winter and love. It's the season of love, although really every season is the season of love. Anyways, the story is from Cowboys Are My Weakness by Pam Houston, and the name of the story is A Blizzard Under Blue Sky. The doctor said I was clinically depressed. It was February, the month in which depression runs rampant in the inversion-cloaked Salt Lake Valley, and the city dwellers escape. The snow is fresh, and the sun is shining, and everybody is happy, except me. In truth, my life was on the verge of more spectacular and satisfying discoveries than I had ever imagined, but of course I couldn't see that far ahead. What I saw was work that wasn't getting done, bills that weren't getting paid, and a man I'd given my heart to weekending in the desert with his ex. The doctor said, "I can give you drugs." I said, "No way." She said, "The machine that drives you is broken. You need something to help you get it fixed." I said, "Winter camping." She said, "Whatever floats your boat." One of the things I love the most about the natural world is the way it gives you what's good for you, even if you don't know it at the time. I had never been winter camping before, at least not in the high country, and the weekend I chose to try and fix my machine was the same weekend the air mass they call the Alaska Clipper showed up. It was 32 degrees below zero in town on the night I spent in my snow cave. I don't know how cold it was out on Beaver Creek. I had listened to the weather forecast and to the advice of my housemate Alex, who is an experienced winter camper. "I don't know what you think you're going to prove by freezing to death," Alex said, "but if you've got to go, take my bivy sack. It's warmer than anything you have." "Thanks," I said. "If you mix Kool-Aid with your water, it won't freeze up," he said. "And don't forget lighting paste for your stove." "Okay," I said. "I hope it turns out to be worth it," he said, "because you are going to freeze your butt." When everything in your life is uncertain, there's nothing quite like the clarity and precision of fresh snow and blue sky. That was the first thought I had on Saturday morning as I stepped away from the warmth of my truck and let my skis slap the snow in front of me. There was no wind and no clouds that morning, just still air and cold sunshine. The hair in my nostrils froze almost immediately. When I took a deep breath, my lungs only filled halfway. I opened the tailgate to excited whines and whimpers. I never go skiing without Jackson and Haley, my two best friends, my yin and yang of dogs. Some of you might know Jackson. He's the oversized sheepdog and something else with the great big nose and the bark that will shatter glass. He gets out and about more than I do. People I have never seen before come by my house daily and call him by name. He's all grace, and he's tireless, and he won't go skiing with me unless I let him lead. Haley is not so graceful, and her body seems in constant indecision when she runs. When we ski, she stays behind me, and on the downhills, she tries to sneak rides on my skis. The dogs ran in circles in the chest-high snow while I inventoried my backpack one more time to make sure I had everything I needed. My sleeping bag, my thermarest, my stove, Alex's bivy sack, matches, lighting paste, flashlight, knife. I brought 3 pairs of long underwear, tops and bottoms, so I could change once before I went to bed and once again in the morning so I wouldn't get chilled by my own sweat. I brought paper and pen and Kool-Aid to mix with my water. I brought Mountain House chicken stew and some freeze-dried green peas, some peanut butter and honey, lots of dried apricots, coffee, and Carnation instant breakfast for morning. Jackson stood very still while I adjusted his backpack. He carries the dog food and enough water for all of us. He takes himself very seriously when he's got his pack on. He won't step for any reason, not even to chase. And he gets nervous and angry if I do. That morning he was impatient with me. "Miles to go, Mum," he said over his shoulder. I snapped my boots into my skis and we were off. There are not too many good things you can say about temperatures that dip past 20 below zero, except this. They turn the landscape into a crystal palace, and they turn your vision into Superman's. In the cold, thin morning air, the trees and mountains, even the twigs and shadows, seemed to leap out of the background like a 3D movie, only it was better than 3D because I could feel the sharpness in the air. I have a friend in Moab who swears that Utah is the center of the fourth dimension, and although I know he has in mind something much different and more complicated than sub-zero weather, it was there on that ice-edged morning that I felt on the verge of seeing something more than depth perception in the brutal clarity of the morning sun. As I kicked along the first couple of miles, I noticed the sun crawling higher in the sky, yet the day wasn't really warming, and I wondered if I should have brought another vest, another layer to put between me and the cold night ahead. It was utterly quiet out there, and what minimal noise we made intruded on the morning like a brass band. The squeaking of my bindings, the slosh of water in Jackson's pack, the whoosh of nylon, the jangle of dog tags. It was the bass line and percussion to some primal song, and I kept wanting to sing to it, but I didn't know the words. Jackson and I crested the top of a hill and stopped to wait for Haley. The trail stretched out as far as we could see into the meadow below us and beyond, a double track and pole plants carving through softer trails of rabbit and deer. "Nice place," I said to Jackson, and his tail thumped the snow underneath him without sound. We stopped for lunch near something that looked like it could be a lake in its other life, or maybe just a womb-shaped meadow. I made peanut butter and honey sandwiches for all of us, and we opened the apricots. "It's fabulous here," I told the dogs, "but so far it's not working." There had never been anything wrong with my life that a few good days in the wilderness couldn't cure, but there I sat, in the middle of all those crystal-coated trees, all that diamond-studded sunshine, and I didn't feel any better. Apparently, clinical depression was not like having a bad day. It wasn't even like having a lot of bad days. It was more like a house of mirrors. It was like being in a room full of one-way glass. "Come on, Mum," Jackson said. "Ski harder, go faster, climb higher." Haley turned her belly to the sun and groaned. "He's right," I told her. "It's all we can do." After lunch, the sun had moved behind our backs, throwing a whole different light on the path ahead of us. The snow we moved through stopped being simply white and became translucent, hinting at other colors, reflections of blues and purples and grays. I thought of Moby Dick, the whiteness of the whale, where white is really the absence of all color and whiteness equals truth. And Ahab's search is finally futile as he finds nothing but his own reflection. "Put your mind where your skis are," Jackson said, and we made considerably better time after that. The sun was getting quite low in the sky when I asked Jackson if he thought we should stop to build the snow cave, and he said he'd look for the next good bank. About 100 yards down the trail, we found it, a gentle slope with eastern exposure that didn't look like it would cave in under any circumstances. Jackson started digging first. Let me make one thing clear. I knew only slightly more about building snow caves than Jackson, having never built one, and all my knowledge coming from disaster tales of winter camping fatalities. I knew several things not to do when building a snow cave, but I was having a hard time knowing what exactly to do. But Jackson helped and Haley supervised, and before too long, we had a little cave built, just big enough for 3. We ate dinner quite pleased with our accomplishments, and set the bivy sack up inside the cave just as the sun slipped away and dusk came over Beaver Creek. The temperature, which hadn't exactly soared during the day, dropped 20 degrees in as many minutes, and suddenly it didn't seem like such a great idea to change my long underwear. The original plan was to sleep with the dogs inside the bivy sack, but outside the sleeping bag, which was okay with Jackson, the super metabolizer, but not so with Haley, the couch potato. She whined and wriggled and managed to stuff her entire fat body down inside my mummy bag. and Jackson stretched out full length on top. One of the unfortunate things about winter camping is that it has to happen when the days are short. 14 hours is a long time to lie in a snow cave under the most perfect of circumstances. And when it's 32 below or 40, 14 hours seems like weeks. I wish I could tell you I dropped right off to sleep. In truth, fear crept into my spine with cold and I never closed my eyes. Cuddled there, amid my dogs and water bottles, I spent half of the night chastising myself for thinking I was Wonder Woman, not only risking my own life, but the lives of my dogs, and the other half trying to keep the numbness in my feet from crawling up to my knees. When I did doze off, which was actually more like blacking out, I'd come back to my senses wondering if I had frozen to death, but the alternating pain and numbness that started in my extremities and worked its way into my bones convinced me that I must still be alive. It was a clear night, and every now and then I would poke my head out of its nest of down and nylon to watch the progress of the moon across the sky. There is no doubt that it was the longest and most uncomfortable night of my life. But then the sky began to get gray and then pink, and before too long the sun was on my bivy sack, not warm exactly, but holding the promise of warmth later in the day. And I ate apricots and drank Kool-Aid flavored coffee and celebrated the rebirth of my fingers and toes and the survival of many more important parts of my body. I sang Rocky Mountain High and If I Had a Hammer and yodeled and whistled and even danced the two-step with Jackson and let him lick my face. And when Haley finally emerged from the sleeping bag a full hour after I did, we shared a peanut butter and honey sandwich, and she said nothing ever tasted so good. We broke camp and packed up, kicked in the snow cave with something resembling glee. I was 5 miles down the trail before I realized what had happened. Not once in that 14-hour night did I think about deadlines or bills or the man in the desert. For the first time in many months, I was happy to see a day beginning. The morning sunshine was like a present from the gods. What really happened, of course, is that I remembered about joy. I know that one night out at 32 below doesn't sound like much to those of you who have climbed Everest or run the Iditarod or kayaked to Antarctica, and I won't try to convince you that my life was like the movies where depression goes away in one weekend and all of life's problems vanish with a moment's clear sight. The simple truth of the matter is this. On Sunday, I had a glimpse outside of the House of Mirrors. On Saturday, I couldn't have seen my way out of a papered bag. And while I was skiing back toward the truck that morning, a wind came up behind us and swirled the snow around our bodies like a blizzard under blue sky. And I was struck by the simple perfection of the snowflakes and startled by the hopefulness of sun on frozen trees. Now I am going to go to love. There are many kinds of love. My dad and mom were married for 60 years, and they had a great relationship, actually one of my favorite relationships ever. And in the last Thanksgiving of his life, at our table, surrounded by our entire family, this is before COVID, Dad, amidst all the cacophony of the conversation, tapped on a wine glass and made us stop so that he could make a toast, a really simple toast, and it was this. On a blind date, I hit the jackpot. Still makes me cry. Anyways, so after Mom died, I found a blue trunk with hundreds of letters that Dad had written to her before they were married. And they're quite something. We were writers in our family, as I've said before, writers and readers. And still, we knew that Dad loved Mom, but, they were more the teasing kind, more the joyful, jovial kind. And so these letters were quite something. I'm going to read you one that he wrote 1 year before they got married. He hadn't quite convinced her. He wrote on really thin paper. Oh, for heaven's sakes, Dad. Okay, so this is January 28th, 1953. My dearest Juliet, it seems that my seeing you this past weekend has only intensified my longing for you. I miss you so much, my Juliet, that I'm at a lack for words. Perhaps the following poem can sum up my feelings more adequately. Dad writing poems. To beauty serene. Would that I could offer you the stars, the moon, the sea. Would that I could say to you, bid me, and what you ask will be. Would that I could ask these things and have them transpire, so that I could treasure the light of your eyes, the smile of your face, and the glee of your voice. Full payment and fair exchange 'twould be for me. But what can I, poor earthly soul, give to thee? Thing of magnitude, of brilliance, of greatness? Nay, what can soul such as I offer thee but this humble form called me? Although the above poem is not distinguished in any way, I can say that it is original and sincere. If these poems, of which I constantly bombard you, are irksome or annoying in any way, I don't rightly think I could blame you. But you see, every once in a while, there's a fermenting and effervescing that goes on in my brain, and it seems that I must put it on paper. It's something over which I have no control. So me being me, I guess I seek your approval on these things done by me, since you, as far as I can determine, are the basis or inspiration from which they evolve. It seems only logical that I send them to you in the great hope that they shall please you. My Juliet, I do miss you very much. When I leave you, it seems like I enter a great void. Every time I turn and leave you, I get the feeling that I'm headed nowhere, headed to some point on the map which has a name, but to me is just that, a name, and nothing more. Only when I travel in your direction do I feel that I am traveling to something worthwhile. Only when I travel towards you do I feel that I have an actual destination. And then again, I may be just a dreamer, drifting nowhere. I think I'm getting melancholy. I better change the subject and tell you how I almost broke my neck 2 times within a minute. I was running toward the bus, looking to see if the bus was there, when I hit a patch of ice. If I were to duplicate the complicated skidding gyrations, waving of arms and legs, while still keeping my balance, I would be a serious threat to all tightrope walkers in the field. After successfully navigating that patch of ice, I started running on the street and hit another patch. The second one wasn't too bad, but it might have proved disastrous if I hadn't kept my equilibrium. I'd better sign off if I'm to get up tomorrow morning. See you for now, my sweetheart. Je t'aime, Aristides. Okay, that was 1953, a year before they married. Now, this is a letter we found that Mom kept, because she kept everything, written in May 2002 by Dad to Mom. My dear Juliet, from the moment I first saw you, some inner beacon of which I was not aware directed me, commanded me to hone into you. This never happened to me before. I was captivated. I always wanted to be in your presence. Saying I love you has never been easy for me, but I do love you. I love you. In all my experience, I've never met anyone who could rival you. Aside from your great beauty, your intelligence, caring, sensitivity, intuition, and ability to respond to all situations, particularly emergencies, has set you on a level beyond compare. You lifted me from aimless wandering and gave me direction. Without you, I was nothing. With you, I've always wanted to be. Life without you is meaningless, a void. I've been very fortunate you came into my life. I love you, Aristides. So that was in 2002. And then one more thing. Dad was always leaving notes, usually humorous notes. And because we've been very lovey-dovey here, I just want to show you a little bit of Dad's humor. So this is just a note he wrote on this crazy old horrible paper in pencil. Annette called just after you left. Angel called about 8:10. Happy birthday by one and all from those that admired you for your beauty, good sense, friendliness, and savoir-faire, etc., are blessed for having known you as a good friend who can be supportive and trusted, above all, genuine, a jewel that touches and uplifts all those fortunate to come in contact with its gleaming brilliance. And best wishes and love from all former lovers who now wish that they had persisted in their love for you, who now live only with their memories of you. They all wish you good health and love, and that you continue to shine for many years as a committee of one who represents them all. Happy birthday, je t'aime, Aristides.